rings moving, run, run, run.
Death awaits.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our Devstream. It is March, I can't believe that, of 2021, and we're here to talk about our next collection event called Chaos Theory. This is exciting. We're introducing some really cool new gameplay stuff, especially into this, and we have wrangled our respawners behind this event, part of the many people behind this event, of course. So let's do a quick roll call, I think, with everybody to introduce yourselves before we kick things off. Let's start with Brian.
Hi there, I'm Brian Vidovich. I'm a game designer on modes and event stuff.
Awesome. Rand.
I'm Randall Stair. I'm the level designer for the Cosmic TT.
Oh, that's going to be fun to talk about. Bilal?
Hi, I'm Bilal Arshad. I'm a narrative designer here working on teases and other narrative stuff.
Another fun thing to talk about. John.
Hello, I am a live balance designer concerned with all things legend and weapon meta.
Eduardo.
Hi, I'm Eduardo Agostini, World Director for Vancouver.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Eric.
Hey, I'm Eric Canavis, working on gameplay design, work on weapons, loot, and ranked.
There, great to see the Fuse mustache staying strong month 2 on Devstreams, Eric. That's awesome. And Fuse being a hit for season 8, which is really exciting. Great to see what players are doing with them. But let's get into Chaos Theory. I think the first thing to get off and talk about, I'm really excited about, is this town takeover. We had Pathfinder before with Fight Night, and that was a lot of fun with the boxing ring. And now we got something brand new with Caustic. I think to kick things off, now we've been doing a series of teases, and this has been historically something we've always done in Apex with our storytelling. Bilal, I know you've been driving a lot of that for this. So why don't you guys just kind of talk about how this came together and what's the story you're telling leading up to Caustic and how that's going to play?
Yeah, so lately things have not been super easy for Caustic, especially with his relationship with Watson being strained. So there are sort of signs that we're trying to show that he's a person who doesn't have much to lose. So he's willing to embrace a darker side than what most people sort of expect of him, even though he's a pretty dark character at times. So this huge opportunity of the amount of toxin we've introduced in the first update with 8.0. You know, he's sort of trying to piece that together and see what he can do with it and convince people to basically create his town takeover. The tease was an exciting part to work on. We wanted to try something new. Working on narrative stuff in a battle royale is always tricky, primarily because it's not a single player game. So it presents a lot of unique opportunities and challenges that we try to tackle. So what we did for the first time in a very long, like I think the first time in Apex, is we sort of took over the map intro screen. So the tease was sort of broken down in 4 phases. The first phase, we actually show a character on the map intro screen for the first time. So you see Caustic, which was super exciting for the team, and was sort of the kickoff for our tease to show something is about to go down. One of the tenets of the tease is the VATs that you'll see in the town takeover itself, but we sort of brought them in before in each of the phases. And so as the phases change, the VATs sort of start from the crash ship location and breadcrumb players towards the actual location of the town takeover. One of the most exciting parts about it is anytime you see a VAT pre-8.1 launch, that means there's an audio log that Caustic's left behind close by. So it was a really cool tease to work on, working with Ed, Rand, and a bunch of narrative folks like Amanda who are not here. So it was a lot of fun to try and get people to pay attention.
I'm excited to have for these teases and the players out there because it's the character. I think the players, he's intertwined with so many other characters in the world, and you know, it's interesting to see like him get fleshed out more. I think he's one of those characters people really want to know more about, and we've already added a lot of mystery to him as well. As far as the town takeover itself, like what can players kind of expect when they're kind of exploring this space or fighting in it?
So the town takeover itself is, well, it's basically based around our toxic element, and our toxic element naturally kind of became our major gameplay hook in the space. There's a lot of challenges there with that because, you know, that can be a slippery slope where you're overpowering something and people are not going to like that. Caustic is a pretty spicy character in general. You either love him or you hate him. If you're playing, you love him. If you don't, you hate him. And we didn't really want that experience to be front and foremost in the town takeover. So we decided to put the ability to play with gas inside, but giving players the ability to turn it on and turn it off. That way it doesn't really feel like you're walking into space that's going to be completely overrun by caustics and have that feeling of caustic, which is, you know, kind of the way that our other part of the map works with the bunker. You get into the bunker. If there's a caustic in there, you know what you're in for. You know what to expect in that experience. We kind of didn't want to replicate that going into the caustic TT because that's something that people have already experienced. So we wanted to bring something new to it and let everybody play with the gas and not just caustic this time around. It's been a lot of fun to work on it. We've seen a lot of crazy things happen inside of there. The other piece of the puzzle there is, Caustic is a scientist, and we call him an evil scientist, but is he really? Maybe he's just more of a genius, right? And that's kind of like how we tried to play him up in here too, is that there's always something going on in the background. He's thinking about something. So what could he be doing with this gas? Well, maybe he's trying to learn something from it or maybe make it better for future use. So we also have this idea of being trapped in the space. And this also plays a very integral part to how you're going to move through it and fight in it and get the goodies in it. Well, we've taken that loot and we put it inside of these traps. And those traps are what's the most fun about this space, because you want to get that stuff, but you also got to go through the toxins to get to it. And that's also where the button comes into play. You press the button, the toxins go away for a limited amount of time, and it gives you a little bit of breather to go in there and collect the stuff that you really want. The gold hop-ups, the gold backpacks, the guns, the armor, all the good stuff is in there. So essentially, there's two major spots to land in the front and the back. Both kind of have an equal opportunity to go in there and press a button. So you've got two buttons, one on each side. And you kind of always need to be watching the teams from the opposite side, like who's going to get there first, who's going to press the button first. And there's this interplay there of like, do I want to press it, or am I going to wait and watch and see what happens? Am I going to be the guy hiding on the side and just jump up and get the loot when the time comes? Or am I going to be the one that gets trapped in the gas because I waited too long? And that's essentially kind of like what we've gone for with that space. Backing up a little bit to talk a bit about how we got there, there was a lot of iterations involved with that work. We started with it being this really glass-looking lab, something futuristic, very, very Apex looking, but didn't necessarily fit caustic in that way. And then from there, we went full tilt and went super dirty and factory looking, which kind of really felt like caustic, but maybe went a bit too far in that direction. So in the end, we kind of settled on something that was in between. And I think everybody has really commented about how much they really feel like it fits caustic, it fits the world. Coming back to where we've put this on the map. So Bilal kind of spilled it out already, where we've come down all the way down the river. We're at the south side of the map now. And the south just made sense for balancing out our update. In 8.0, we went really heavy on the north side with the crash ship and spotted lakes, and we needed a way to kind of balance that out. So we had played around with several locations around in the south there with where it could fit. And then ultimately we ended up at water treatment. So water treatment becomes caustic treatment now. And this is where the facility lives. And it really brings a lot of balance to the update, not only in terms of what we've updated on the map, but also with loot and the way that loot gets dispersed. The quality stuff is much higher there now in that area. In the end, the toxins, caustic, the look, the whole package has really come together. And we think players are really going to like what we've done with the space.
Water treatment, I think, actually makes a whole lot of sense too for what he's doing. And that's a really cool space as well. That's survived so long on Apex. So yeah, it was about time for that area of the map to get played with here a little bit.
Needed to refresh.
And it was something that we, even when we knew we were dropping the ship, we kind of were already talking about which legend we were going to tap into for the town takeover. And we felt that we had a story that could actually pay off. We could actually have some synergy between what happens at the beginning of the season and what we see in the middle of the season, which I don't know if we really have done much of that in the past. It's kind of like, hey, here's town takeover, and is a bit separated from the catalyst of the season. Whereas this time, I think we did a pretty good job of like breadcrumbing what's to come.
Yeah, it's something players I think have called out over time too. And even as we've grown, the sort of like how we're flexing storytelling, it's been great to see the team try new things every time, even looking at, from our OP shorts to the first town takeovers we did compared to the bigger ones we've done like Bloodhound and Pathfinder, and now with Caustic. We've got a couple other things that are really going to be shaking things up during Chaos Theory as well. I think next thing to talk about is the new mode that we're going to be introducing during the event. And this will be a takeover, not a limited time mode like we've done in the past. This is something that over the course of the 2 weeks will be taking the place of trios and duos in Apex called Ring Fury. Brian, tell us all about that.
Oh, it is going to be fantabulous. There is a lot going on with Ring Fury.
Yep.
We've been testing with this idea for a long time, and it's a simple notion. What if you couldn't go exactly where you wanted to go exactly when you wanted to do it? Like, what if the games had their own plans? And so we decided to start crafting this narrative very early on how Mad Maggie takes over the games and how she sabotages them. And her idea here is let's make every part of this experience more difficult for the legends. So we express that in what we're calling ring flares in this Ring Fury takeover. And what those are basically little pockets of the ring that get dropped in the middle of the map and expand outwards in a variety of ways. So the cool thing about this takeover, it's not one and done. It's not going to be 2 weeks of exactly the same thing. It's actually an escalation, and there are 5 escalations. So there's a lot going on here. Where the first time, the first escalation is just an intro. It's just getting you ready with just okay, yeah, there's going to be just one ring flare each round, and as it gets, everything gets smaller. Be like, oh, here's another one. Maybe it'll make you think about your rotations differently. Maybe it'll push a team out of cover. Who knows what'll happen. But then as we move into the other escalations, there'll be massive single ring flares that will take up an entire POI or bigger to make you think about those rotations differently. And then the third, fourth, and fifth escalations, well, you're going to have to kind of experience how those will escalate over time. We're definitely we've play tested it quite a bit, and it's a ton of fun. It's definitely hectic. It fits perfectly with the theme of mayhem. We really hope players will enjoy the experience of running through all of the escalations with us.
How will the escalations work? Is that something where it's like the first 3 days it's going to be at a certain level, and then over the course of 2 weeks, like the matches get more intense? Like how are we going to like distribute that out?
That's right. It's every 3 days it'll kind of switch up. So it'll show you right in the menu, right in the lobby UI. It'll be like, hey, what escalation? What level is this right now? And it'll escalate all the way until the end of the 2 weeks. And another really cool thing about it is that Mad Maggie's actually taking over as the announcer as well. So it's a lot of really fun lines. She taunts you quite a bit. She is just fantastic. And so we're really happy we got those lines written early. I believe Amanda wrote those lines as well. And it's just been awesome to have her like very well represented as the orchestrator of this takeover.
That's awesome. That's super fun. Something else we're introducing with this, which is going to play pretty interesting into this mode, and I think going to be a pretty big game changer, I think, in Apex as far as how people position themselves, especially with a new survival item called the Heat Shield. Eric, can you break us down how that item is going to work? Because this is crazy.
Yes, I would love to. We have been working on the Heat Shield for quite some time. It's gone through a lot of different iterations until we finally found what's working for Apex. So the Heat Shield, like you said, is designed to sit sort of next to the mobile respawn beacon in terms of being a survival item. And I'll speak a little bit more about what that means later. But to get into how it actually works is when you loot the Heat Shield, you'll be able to throw it out. And if you throw it into the ring, it's actually going to create this protective dome that will keep you safe in the ring. So you will avoid any ring tick damage while you're in there. And one of the really cool things about the Heat Shield is that it actually takes all of that energy that it's protecting you from and converts it into this like fast healing aura. So while you're in there, you're actually able to revive your teammates faster and use your healing consumables faster. And it's really designed to be this sort of comeback mechanic when you're down and out in the ring, or if you're in the Ring Fury mode to sort of combat some of that randomness. So it's a very exciting item, and I think I'm really excited to see what players do with it, because there's a lot of player expression that we're going to see out of this, a lot of creative things that they're going to do, a lot of cheeky plays that I can see coming out of this. And so to kind of get back into the survival item thing, one of the things that we're going to release with the Heat Shield is actually the survival slot. And how that works is in your inventory, we're actually making a new slot that's just for these survival items. So the mobile respawn beacon and the Heat Shield. So gone are the days of dropping Heat Shields for ammo or health items. Now we really want players to have this opportunity to pick up the survival item, coordinate with their team. Oh, who's getting the MRB? Who's going to take some Heat Shields? How are we going to use our utility items to win the game? So I'm really excited to see how all of this interplays and how people combat the Ring Furies. It's going to be a really, really exciting event.
Yeah, in addition to the perks, it's got some risks to it involved as well, right? Because the dome itself has HP and is taking damage from the ring. So it doesn't last forever, right? Like it's going to wear out over time.
Yeah, so it's really designed to be this kind of like early to mid-game bounce back mechanic. We don't want people throwing down a bunch of Heat Shields in the final ring, staying out there and trying to outlast opponents. So you're right, it's got this HP, so in the earlier rounds, it's going to not take very much damage. It'll last a while. But as these rounds increase, as the damage of the ring increases, it will last less and less and less. And so you'll just have to play with it. I challenge you to see how far you can take it into the rings. We think we balanced it pretty well, but Only all of you are going to show us if we did a good job there.
Very, very cool. Let us know what you think of that, everybody, while you're playing with it, and give us that feedback. Next up, this is a collection event, and like with every collection event, we have a great suite of skins that you're going to be able to earn through challenges and unlock. And the collection boxes, really cool legendaries, and the epics across the board. The skydive emotes just are animators and artists just really outdo themselves every single time. When I think about how many skins we've made, and I'm still impressed by the stuff we make for these characters. In addition to that, getting those, we have our next heirloom, which is Bangalore's. I'm so excited about that. Bangalore's been one of my main characters since like pre-launch. So I've been waiting a long time for this cold steel. That's a very appropriate looking mean knife. I think to close us out here, we do have some patch notes info coming out with this release as well. So we brought in John Larson, our man behind the meta. John, what can we expect in 8.1?
Yeah, so first and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room, Pathfinder. His hitbox change in Season 7 put him at approximately the size of a juvenile elephant, and it doesn't make sense for him to retain low profile. So he's definitely easier to hit now, and the data backs that up. So with this update, no more low profile on Path. He's free. Moving on to that gassier, stinkier elephant, which is Caustic. Bilal talked about Caustic's narrative being in a troubled state, but from a gameplay perspective, it's quite the opposite. He is thriving. For many players, Apex's movement mechanics and gunplay promote fast-moving fights. Caustic is brutally effective at slowing engagements down. The entirety of his kit revolves around gas, with a large area of effect, slow, vision obstruction, and direct health damage. His strengths were really brought to the forefront once teammates could play in friendly gas with relatively no repercussions. In matches that last more than 20 minutes, which happens frequently at higher level play, he actually has the highest win rate. So while he's strongest in endgame, it's become clear that his gas is too strong in too many scenarios. So with this update, instead of ramping up gas damage from 6 to 12 per tick, it will damage at a flat rate of 5. On the receiving end, this makes gas damage more predictable and less oppressive when calculating whether or not to push a Caustic setup. And a bit of a side note that I want to bring up, I often see requests for a quality of life change to color differentiate friendly and enemy gas. Right now, the biggest hesitation teammates have when fighting in gas is when 2 Caustics are involved. With differentiation, it only encourages teammates to play in gas even more, actually making them stronger. All gas should not be easy or fun to fight in, unless you're Caustic, and that's by design. But it's not a zero-sum game, and gas fights simply favor the friendly team over the enemy team too much. Because Caustic fights tend to be drawn out, Caustic often has his ult available in every engagement. Damage-dealing ultimates are meaningful, and players should have to make the calculated decision every time they consider using one. We feel it's appropriate to increase his ult cooldown from 2.5 to 3.5 minutes, which is right between something like Gibby's ult and Bang's ult. So I'm really curious to see how Caustic performs with these changes. Of all the changes we were considering, this one felt most reasonable for both parties. I got a few Caustic mains on my friends list, and I'm eager to hear from the community about how this feels both playing as Caustic and against Caustics. So back to the regularly scheduled program, no more stupid elephant references. Similar to our reasoning with the Caustic ult, Horizon's Black Hole will also get a cooldown increase from 2 to 3 minutes. And we got some other stuff in the works with Horizon. She's pretty strong right now. A different tactical that's also proven to be strong is Gibraltar's Dome. On part of his journey from zero to hero over the past 2 years, we made healing 15% faster in his bubble. And Gibby's pretty strong right now, and it was never super readable in the first place, so we're going to remove the Dome fast heal altogether. Watson still finds success at high-level play, and as far as competitive is concerned, I'm curious to see if we'll see more usage from her, given the Caustic changes. But for all of us who are not competitive players, a reason her pick rate is low could be because she doesn't have much selfish power. So we're borrowing a little something from Octane, and Watson will now have passive shield regen. It'll be at a rate of 1 HP per second, which is half the rate of Octane's current health regen, but it will stack with her ult. And man, I feel bad for Rampart. We gave her a meaningful buff at the start of the season, but we also introduced a character that could completely destroy all her walls with one knuckle cluster. We originally wanted to give players the ability to learn that any sort of explosive grenade would actually inflict half the damage of the equipment's starting HP. So this is both for Sheila and walls. However, that message wasn't clearly communicated, and considering Rampart could still use a buff, explosives no longer deal extra damage to her equipment. And this is pretty significant. For example, instead of something like an Arc Star dealing 200 damage to a wall, it will now inflict the standard 70. Okay, let's talk weapons. We're happy with how the Season 8 weapon meta is shaking out, and we're pleased with the 30-30's usage so far. There are 3 weapon changes to mention this time around. The Hemlock's hipfire is on the strong side for a weapon that we think should excel in medium to long ranges. So to decrease its burstiness up close, we're increasing its hipfire spread to be more in line with the Scout. The Wingman has fallen to the wayside a bit because it's a lot less forgiving than many other mid-range options. To compensate for that, we're giving it 1 extra bullet. So base increase from 5 to 6, purple mag from 8 to 9. The Mastiff, on the other hand, has remained dominant. In an effort to reduce the big damage potential this thing has with every shot, we're dialing back the per pellet damage from 13 to 11. To compensate for that, we're increasing the fire rate just a bit. Oh, and one more thing. So save the best thing for last. You know when you're like bottom of Oasis and you find that gold Spitfire, you're like, sweet, gold weapon. And you pick it up and you're like, oh man, it's got Respawn's favorite 1x2 variable sight on it. Like that's a bummer. So we're kind of updating ourselves. We're coming with the times here, and we say, you know, all ARs and all MGs will now come with the 2x Bruiser. But it gets even better than that. For all gold weapons and all care package weapons, you can now swap out to any optic that's available for that gun, except for the Kraber. Because if you could put like a 1x on the Kraber, that would be OP. So for your Prowler, your PK, any gold weapon, you can swap any other optic that would work for that weapon.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I got to give shout out to Devin YZ for implementing that change. That's an awesome change for sure.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Whoa. All right. Thanks so much, John. It's a lot of like really cool, exciting stuff. And I think I'm going to be playing Watson, I think, a little bit more for this round for sure. But before we leave, we got one more feature that we want to talk about. That's a pretty big, awesome thing that's coming to Apex Legends. And I thought it'd be really appropriate to bring back one of our regulars, one of our OG guests of the dev streams, and one of our fearless leaders, Jason McCord. Welcome back, man. Good to have you here for our outro for our dev stream.
Yes, the outro.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah. So yeah, one final thing before we leave, because I think this is a big feature. It's something players have been asking for, and it's awesome we have it in the game. No Phil is going to be coming out with this Chaos Theory update. So McCord, walk us through how that's going to work and why we have it in there.
Yeah, I think for a lot of players that have played other battle royales, they know what no fill is. It's pretty, you know, we're basically implementing a version that you might expect. But for those of you who have only played Apex as your battle royale, then I think the concept of no fill is like takes a second to understand. So the general premise is if you want to play the game by yourself for a multitude of reasons, you can uncheck fill teammates in the lobby. It'll always be on there on the playlist, except for in ranked. So in trios and duos, you can uncheck fill teammates. It's kind of a double negative. It's kind of funny. And what that'll do is that'll send you into the game without grabbing other people to fill your team. So if you're going into trios with fill teammates turned off, you'll go in by yourself. You'll be a team of 1. There'll be other teams of 3s in there. Good luck. But the reason this is really cool is because there's lots of things that the game wants you to do that sometimes you just want to go in there and try and do by yourself without having to ruin the experience of other players because they're trying to win and you're trying to complete a challenge. You know, you're trying to go in there and get some kills with the Hemlock or something, right? Or you're trying to experience the latest tease that we're putting, the story event that we've put out, and you have to go, you know, do some things in order. And that can be really hard when you still want to play a match with the people that you get matchmated, and you don't want to just be the random teammate that runs off by themselves to go experience this thing. And there's also lots of opportunities to just warm up, right? You want to go in by yourself. You don't have to worry about winning. It's fine. You're going to die in the hot zone, and you're okay with that. But you're just going to get warm up against real players. This is a really good feature for that. And you can also, I mean, I can't wait to see some of the videos of people that go in solo to try and get a trios win. So like little challenge runs that people can give themselves. I think that'll be really exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely don't fit in that camp where I'm going to like try to give myself the extra challenge of
I'm going to try it once. there's a different type of experience that you play whenever you're by yourself in a game where you feel like you're outmatched by other squads, but you feel like maybe I can hunt them one at a time, or I can sort of sneak my way to the end and then try and third party the last fight or something. There's like things that you try to do, and they're a little extra hard, but if you can pull them off, they're really exciting.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, very cool. Well, thank you for popping in here real quick to let us know about No Film for everybody back home. That's part of everything else coming in with this Chaos Theory event, which launches on March 9th. Lots of awesome stuff coming. So play it. Let us know your feedback, how you guys feel about it. We'll be watching, and we'll see you next month on our next Devstream. So thanks so much, guys.